Very cool. Pleasure to welcome to the podcast Josh Tucker, owner of True Focus Vision Performance Specialist. Josh, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So I reached out to you on Instagram because I'm interested in any tool that can make a lacrosse goalie better, right? And we've had a bunch of lacrosse goalie coaches talking about the technique and all of that stuff. And you are a vision specialist, and that's what we're going to talk about right now. But you're also a goalie. I'd love to hear kind of your experience of being an ice hockey goalie and how sort of that led to the vision piece.
Yeah, so it's one way or another, any goalie, I think there's a bit of brotherhood there, a sisterhood. And
Yeah.
so I'm in Minnesota, and so hockey kind of reigns supreme here in a lot of ways. And so I became a goalie at a young age and absolutely loved it. And it's remained part of my life in one way, shape, or form. So obviously playing and then coaching, did that for a living for a number of years. Coached high school hockey here in Minnesota as well, and now staying involved through the vision piece, where we work with all kinds of athletes for different sports, different positions. We work with people for non-sports reasons. Concussion recovery is a big one, and then kids with reading issues as well. And so within the sports realm, I think the fit between my background with the position of being a goalie, coupled with coming up on 2 decades of experience with the vision piece, it's just this extra piece that we can implement where it's just such a beautiful fit. And I think, there can be experts in different fields. And I say all the time, when it comes to vision, there are certain conditions or, people who have things that are going on where I'm not the right fit or the best fit. But when it comes to this, when we have conversations, we can speak the same language, which goes a long way, right? And we can break down and create drills that are super, super specific to the position and the level that people play. And so, we'll dive in and talk about the hand-eye piece, hand-eye coordination. And I don't know how, common it is in the lacrosse world, but for hockey, it's kind of a given, like you're supposed to learn to juggle, right?
Yeah.
That's the big accomplishment. But what I've seen is, we're talking NHL starters. They did that and that was it, because no one ever really pushed them to do more. And so that's one of the facets of our training that has really grown over the years, is just a massive library of drills for both just, general coordination, where I know looking through your stuff, you're a big proponent of playing different sports. I am as well, where kind of at the base of everything is just be an athlete, right? Just kind of gain control over your body where you can do those minute changes, but then challenge the brain to do more and more, where like any other facet of training, if you never increase the demand, you're not going to get performance enhancement, or improvement. So,
Right. Well, that's why I'm so excited about this chat, because you and I spoke on the phone briefly, maybe like a week ago. And right after that, I had a podcast with another goalie. And so I asked him, like, hey, do you do any like vision training? And he's like, juggling, right? So that's kind of like the extent of what most lacrosse goalies know and do. And then there's variations of that, right? Juggling off a wall, or maybe someone tosses you the ball and you're catching it. So there's a lot of variations of that, but this is going to be cool, because I think we can go, at least what I'm hearing is we can go a lot deeper than that, right?
Oh, way, way deeper. Yeah. It's, while juggling's on the topic, I like to help people understand why it's important.
Okay.
And I've kind of swayed on a pendulum in terms of the importance of just that specific goal in learning to juggle over my tenure with this company. And when I first started doing this, I'm like, all right, if you're a goalie, you're going to learn to juggle. But a lot of that in my head was just because that's what you're supposed to do, and that's what I was told. And then I kind of backed off. I worked with a Stanley Cup winning goalie. and he didn't know how to juggle. And not that one thing is like the make or break, but it made me step back and kind of just say, all right, let's look deeper into this, right? So it's not a prerequisite, right? It's not a make or break deal, but that was, unavoidable pun, eye-opening experience, right? And so, but then what really tipped me back, and now I've swung very hard in the direction of, yes, absolutely, you're going to learn, is there's a study in Oxford that showed that the brain developed new brain matter specific to the area that catches things out of the air, or that's linked to that, by going through the process of learning to juggle.
Wow.
And then going beyond that, they found, some people got decent at it, some got really, really good at just the standard 3-ball pattern. There was not a difference in that level of mastery. It was the learning process that had the desired effect.
Interesting. So just like going through the process of learning how to juggle, like that process sort of develops these, I don't know, call them connections in your brain that sort of help you then track shots.
Yeah.
Is that fair to say?
Yeah. And so that has become one of the kind of underlying principles with which we use our drills in terms of when to move on to something harder, where to start someone, right? Where really what we want out of any drill is the effect, the improvement, right?
Right, sure.
And so we kind of do ABC, always be challenged, where juggling is a pattern where I tell kids going from being able to get 6 reps to getting 10 reps is harder than going from 10 reps to 50 reps. Because as long as you're mechanically sound, it's just repeat, repeat, repeat. It's a pattern, right? And so you mentioned off the wall. So there's kind of 4 drills that we really get everybody through as quickly as possible, is to master, in the air, off the wall, off the ground, and then 2 in one hand per hand. And so really the main thing is, we're going to get improvement out of that, like we discussed, but then what happens next is, it opens up this world to make the drills less pattern-based, less predictable, and they're never the same twice, right?
Yeah.
So, example would be if you can juggle off the wall with 3 balls, replace one of those balls with reaction ball.
Okay.
And so now every 3rd ball is going to be, who knows, right? And I could throw with my right hand, it comes back to my right hand, and now I have to be disciplined enough to break that right-left pattern, which is really hard.
Yeah.
And so, it's kind of learn the patterns so we can get away from patterns, if that makes sense. It's not necessarily the case for every single drill, but that's just one of the things we follow.
I get it. Learn the patterns so you can break them. It's kind of like, I don't know, maybe like with the rules of language, like you have to really understand it before you can like properly break it, or maybe in fashion, like that kind of thing where like I really understand it and I really got it. Now I can sort of introduce some variance in there.
Yeah.
All right. Is there, if you're teaching a goalie how to juggle, is there like a good YouTube video, or like, are there some tips on it where like once they have this tip, it's like, I couldn't juggle and then I started doing this one thing and now I can? Or is it just like, 20 minutes a day, juggle?
No, I would say I liken learning to juggle to learning to drive a stick shift.
Okay.
A lot of it depends on how is it posed to you, right? Like, I see people, they teach it, they're explaining how to drive a stick shift, and they're like, just switch feet, just like this. Like, if you've ever driven one, it's way too simplistic, right? And we've got a YouTube video. If you just do true focus, learn to juggle, something to that effect.
Okay.
And there's no shortage of learn to juggle videos on YouTube. And the number one thing that I see with that is the kind of stopping point is when the balls project forward. And so if a ball's coming down here, people are going to reach up to catch it like this. They're in a rush to catch it. And so this ball ends up kind of launching forward. And that's why I mentioned like reps 4, 5, and 6 are the brick wall, where if you have something going on mechanically wrong, getting past those, it's like you might get 7 or 8 once, but not consistently.
Yeah.
And so separate the throw from the catch and have your hand moving down when you catch. It's like, let's say your forward passes to a guy who's breaking toward the net. If the pass is in front of him, he's got to catch it, wind up, and then shoot. It's going to take longer than if the pass is slightly behind him. He might be able to just catch it in the wind up and then shoot.
Yeah.
So if my hand's moving down, I'm kind of catching it at the bottom and I'm right back into my throw. Or if I reach up and catch it, I have to grab it, pull it down, and and I have to be faster to reach up and grab it. So
that's a good tip. That's a good tip. Yeah.
Yeah. And if the ball's going forward, I like to have people kind of walk up to a wall and then just like fist to the wall and then back up slightly, where just having that visual of the wall in front of you just kind of forces your brain to not be as reckless throwing them forward, where, you kind of have to keep it more east-west than forward.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And I think, it's a fun thing to do. I have some families who have learned together. I fire a video like, hey, show this to Johnny. And then I've got a family right now. Every single member of the family is learning to juggle.
Nice.
And yeah. And then, going from there, depending on from using different balls or adding variables or challenges, there's stuff where, I can vouch that the absolute best in the world are still challenged. And so there's just much more than what people realize in that regard.
Love
and it. And I'll kind of let you take the lead on where to go and when, but I think the hand-eye piece, when you mention, what can kids do at home, that's going to be more the case than, I'd say the biggest piece in terms of real improvements in performance is to actually train the visual system directly. So there are muscles that control eye movement coordination.
Okay.
And like other muscle groups, there can be imbalances, there can be weaknesses, and most people, aren't really aware how they're doing in that regard.
Right.
Because those skills are not often tested in standard eye exams. And, further, because how each of us perceives the world is all we've ever experienced. And we assume that how we perceive it is normal and as good as it gets, right? Where, examples would be, so if we take like posture, right? So there are 2 visual skills that are really paramount for any team sport. So one is convergence, where the eyes turn in, and one is divergence, when the eyes relax out.
Mm-hmm.
And so for goalies, we absolutely need both. So the ability to relax the eyes out allows us to see things that are further away. I'd say most importantly is the peripheral awareness is aided by, the stronger our ability to let the eyes go, the easier it is to see stuff around us, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then convergence is happening as we're tracking the ball or puck in toward us, right? So if you imagine a laser beam coming out of each eye, if I look at my finger as it comes toward me, my eyes turn inward. And some people's eyes, I don't know if you can see it, some people's eyes want to always revert to that relaxed, straightforward position.
Mm-hmm.
So what I see with goalies who have that visual system where it's more prone to staying in that relaxed, straightforward state is they kind of just catch everything out in space and they're not really seeing it in. Now, you can get very, very good at that technique.
Mm-hmm.
But ideally, you're going to do better if your brain is actually visually attached to the target object, right?
Yeah.
And so I went through our program when I was 18. So it was created by a gentleman 100% for the reading purposes. And but he was starting to work with more athletes too. So I did it for goaltending and absolutely loved it. My visual profile was more of that kind of like forward, overly tight. So my eyes were really good at convergence, but really deficient on divergence. So what I experienced personally going through this was just kind of an opening up of like, just seeing more of the ice, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I don't even know if TVs have this anymore, but you used to be able to change it from regular mode to theatrical mode. It was like, whoa, I never knew that tree was there in that scene until we widened it out. And so those would be two of the leading skills. And then also within that, are the eyes working and performing equally, right? So I might see a kid where on the tests they can converge to a decent point, but it's just their left eye turning in.
Yeah.
And then, this is where we start to see, anything that isn't working as it should, we're going to see compensation patterns, right? Where if we move on to eye movements, we want to see nice, smooth, controlled, fast, crisp eye movements. And some kids or adults have just very poor control over the eye movements. And that could be, overshooting an object, coming back, or kind of skips along the way. On the extreme end, I have kids where I had a little boy last year where his eyes, I would just have him follow his thumb like a foot like this, and his eyes would go up and down on an object moving this, just no control. And so, those extreme cases, you're going to see a lot of kids get weeded out of team sports. From my experience, quite common if I have someone who hasn't gotten diagnosed with these things until more into their teen years. A lot of times they'll gravitate towards swimming or cross country, where it's just me and a straight line. I don't have to process everything moving around. And so,
and in those, let me ask a question on that. In those cases, like, where they've got that going on, how does that show up for a goalie? Do they then have, they have a lot of trouble tracking the puck, like as it's being passed around the ice, right? Or tracking the ball as it's moving around. The offense is moving it around. Is that kind of the idea? And then when there's a quick shot off of one of those passes, like they don't even pick up that release because they've sort of lost track of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it can manifest in different ways. On the most extreme end, they're not going to be very good. I mean, just to be blunt, is just, I see kids where something that should be simple, like, hey, I'm going to toss you this tennis ball from 6 feet away. They can't do it. And now you put them in a sport like baseball. They can't hit. If they do, it was, fortunate, or if you're out there running a session with your goalies and there's a kid that just straight up misses stuff, right? Where, I would say, if there's a discrepancy between one metric and another, like let's say you've just got a kid who's like an athlete, right? Just it's like, oh, this kid, but then disproportionately he just misses stuff or doesn't catch it cleanly. You know what I mean? That should tell us that something's going on, because typically, if you're an athlete, right, like a fast runner, you can jump high, physically coordinated, those kids should be able to, execute these tasks.
Saves, yeah.
And so it depends on which visual issue they're afflicted with, right? But you might notice that, things that coaches can look for, if in their ready position, if there's just a head turn, that means they're favoring one side. That's going to be a likely indicator. I don't know that you would see this extreme of it, but there are also vertical deviations where one eye could be higher than the other. And you extend that over time and that gap gets wider, where you might see a diagonal tilt.
Interesting.
And so why this is so important is, very well, the number of hours and years that these players will commit to their craft, right? And our ceiling is to a degree is going to be set by in part by the tools that we're using to do the job, right? And so if I have a fundamental flaw with the tools I'm using, you know, I'm going to have to compensate for that. And more, you know, staying after practice and taking 100 extra shots a day for one specific issue, if it's due to one of these issues, especially if it's a significant one, you know, it might not be enough to help the kid through it, right? Where for if it's not because of that, those extra shots are, you know, going to be more valuable, right? Where I had a little boy a couple of years ago came in for an assessment and reading was an issue. And his eye movements were the worst, top 5 worst I'd ever seen, right? Just zero control over them. And his eyes wouldn't converge. Anything less than 4 feet away, he'd see double because his eyes would not align at the target.
Oh, wow.
And the family decided, you know, we're just gonna, you know, pursue tutoring. And tutoring is a wonderful thing, right? And it's effective if a kid just needs extra help, right? I have a guy that worked for me for 5 years, and he'll vouch. It's the only time I've ever said something like this. I said, mark my words, we will hear from that family in 1 year. And it was almost to the day. Like, hey, we did tutoring. We decided to give it a year, and it didn't help. Like, we're exactly where we were. And, you know, so that's a more extreme case, but, you know, you can kind of work your way from there where he was so lacking in the prerequisite tools. And we can translate that to sports, right? If he were a lacrosse goalie, with his visual system, he wouldn't stand a chance because his eyes couldn't follow the ball. Anything up close, he wouldn't see the ball all the way in. Where, you know, for him, just extra reps would have been spinning the wheels. So
right.
I like this type of training. If there's something really deficient going on, the younger the better. You know, we work with age 6 and up. But if kids are more in the mid-range, like they have a good visual system, they want to be great. People ask, one of the number one questions I get is, what is the best age to do this type of training? Then getting a little bit past 10 is probably ideal because more likely to get that intrinsic motivation from the athlete, where the training itself is not terribly exciting, right? The actual exercises for the eyes, it's repetitions and a lot of them, right? Where, you know, getting a single digit age kid to do those drills can be a challenge, especially
I hear you. Yeah.
you get past it. So pardon me. So the term that I would encourage your listeners to pursue there is vision therapy.
Okay.
So common terms they'll see would be vision therapy or sports vision training. Most commonly sports vision training, you're going to see things like a light board where you're hitting lights on the wall and you're doing hand-eye drills. Vision therapy will more commonly be associated with the reading side of things. But I tell people that, so I've got a wall full of our athletes here. We've got professional football and hockey players. Every one of them, as far as training the eye muscles, they did the exact same program that an 8-year-old with a reading issue will do. Because we're training the same skills and we're going to train them to the elite level and we're going to train them until they stay there. And so, it's more akin to muscle memory than it is strength. And so you still want to do some maintenance, but, you know, to go through our program, kids do it once and then we give them maintenance equipment and it should stay, you know, eventually time is undefeated, right? Like, you know, we get older but for purposes of an athletic career, vision is a box that absolutely should be checked.
Yeah.
One of the nice things is that portion of it, you know, it's not hey, every summer we've got to go do vision therapy, right? It's just, if done well and done right, most people should be able to achieve lasting results.
Love it. If there's I imagine most people have some sort of deficiency going on. I mean, I've never really trained the muscles in my eye. I imagine most people have something going on. What's the test at home that I can do? Is it that, what you just said, like sort of take the finger and start it out and then bring it towards my face and try and track that and see what happens to my eyes? Or there's other self-diagnostics I can do at home to know if, all right, I'm in a real bad situation. I should really work this.
Sure, sure. Uh, I mean, the best bet is to have the actual testing done. If you want just a general idea, and I suppose, disclaimer, it's not, uh, guaranteed to be accurate, but
Right.
especially if there's something drastic going on, like you said. So if the athlete, have someone watch, and if the athlete brings their thumb in toward them, if your thumb splits into two, then convergence could be on the radar, right? Where now if I get like right here, like touching my nose, there's a reasonable limit to it. But especially kids should be able to get pretty close. And then what you can do is you can kind of hold it here like 6 inches away, look at something else, and then look back. And if
Okay.
there's difficulty, if things split into two, that's the big one, right? Um, and then kind of range of motion. Someone can move something for you is probably ideal. Just like slow figure eights, and then just kind of stopping at like upright, straight up, left, just hit those 9 corners. And look for any anomalies or discomfort. When I say anomalies, like from the user's end, if they see two of anything, or if the observer sees that the eyes just don't, if they're kind of off.
Mm-hmm.
There are some more rare things, but we've had people where their eyes are aligned here, but as they look this way, one eye goes up.
Yeah, wow.
And it's, there was an adult. He was in his 20s, and I was just talking to him, and he looked away, and I saw that happen, and I'm like, I asked him like, how's that? Has that affected you? And he's like, what do you mean? He had no idea that his eyes did that.
Yeah.
So
Right,
it's,
right.
um, and then another good one would be like a near far, more of a focusing, where have something in front of you with small font, and then something, across the room on the wall. Switch back and forth between the two. And if one takes, if it's not quick to refocus, that's another visual skill called accommodation that, should be looked into. And so I'll pause there and say a prerequisite to all of this is just simply getting a standard eye exam.
Got it.
And
Yeah.
you would be shocked. You'd be shocked how many athletes I've met over my years that have never done that one simple thing that's going to be covered by insurance. It's 20-minute appointment. I've had numerous people in my path that they have to see our optometrist to work with us,
Mm-hmm.
at least locally, right? Remotely, we have them see someone else. But I had a young man, he had just finished playing college hockey. He was about to start his pro career. And I sent him in to do his exam to start our training. And he calls me, he's like, I need glasses. I'm like, that's great. It's just, and I was there when he put them on for the first time. And he goes, holy, you know what? This is what everything's supposed to look like.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
It's just, and how backwards, right? I mean, we've spent years on our craft, and this one just simple thing, right? Because if all you have, if you're just dealing with a 20/20 issue and you can just put something in your eyes and see better, like there's no other realm of performance improvement that is as fast as that,
Right.
right?
Yeah. Put on
Yeah.
those
And
glasses.
so, yeah, I mean, that's my overarching, like, if people take one single thing from this, is if you've never gotten an eye exam, go get one. And, because your own view of how you see things, you don't have an alternative that
Right.
you've ever experienced, right? It's
Right.
like, you grew up with a tube TV and then, yeah, this is what TV is. Then you go to your neighbors and he's got HD and you're like, oh, it can be better.
Yeah. Love it. I wanted I want to talk about some exercises we can do at home, but before we get to that, there's this idea of like sort of like hard focus and soft focus, right? Where,
Yeah.
okay. So as a goalie, in ice hockey or lacrosse, or even sports like, I don't know, like tennis, where I'm returning a serve, or baseball, where I'm trying to pick up the ball out of the pitcher's hand, right?
Yeah.
Like the hard focus, and maybe you can explain it a little bit better, but like to me, the hard focus is I'm focusing right on that ball, right on it. And then like I have a little like circle of soft focus around that where I'm picking up like different things. And as a lacrosse goalie, like maybe that's, where the shoulders are pointed. And that can help me, while I pick up that shot right out of the stick, the shoulders are pointed in this direction. So I kind of can read that and go. So can
Yeah.
you talk about like from in your experience as ice hockey, like how do I use that soft focused and hard focus? Like what's the best way to think about that to make saves?
Great question. I mean, the very simplistic answer would be when there's not an imminent threat, we're typically in soft focus. Because when we go into that hard focus, like you said, our surroundings can either and or get shrunken a bit or less clear.
Mm,
Where if the ball carrier is here and there's a threat over here, and there's a trailer back here, and your defender's pretty well on the guy. If I'm just fixated on him with my hard focus, I'm going to lose these two guys. And so I want to be in that soft focus until I feel that a shot is coming.
mm,
Um, and then it's going to be eyes on the ball, eyes on the puck. Um, and now, you can make quick checks, quick shifts out of that, right? Like, all right, in that scenario, I'm going to be watching him, but I'm watching, keep an eye on these guys, just that quick head check.
hmm
Um, and you mentioned like the shoulder lean, right? So, in hockey, I had a spot like anytime the puck crossed the blue line, that was my trigger where I would just look over and look back and I would say righty or lefty. So I knew what hand this shooter was, which is different than lacrosse, right? Well, it's not, but you and I spoke on the phone about the different angles of attack, right?
Yeah.
So I'll kind of backtrack. So that information alone, coupled with years of pattern recognition, right, is going to give me an idea of, where on the field is the shot likely to come from? And if a pass is made, what is this player likely to do? Right. Because, a pass from this side to a righty versus a pass to this side from the righty, the speed at which he's going to be able to release his shot is going to vary depending on the handedness, right? That type of thing. And so, um, you don't, that might be I'm in soft focus, quick hard focus, and then back just to see, what hand and what's the speed and angle of where he's moving, right? So
Right.
then I can kind of, if he's coming at a diagonal line, say, okay, we're gonna all converge in the middle here, or if he's taking more of a wide path, that might affect, my depth in the net, how much I can commit to the ball carrier, that type of thing. And so, but within all of that, again, my ability to soft focus, hard focus is also dependent on the tools that I'm using to do that. So going back to
Yeah.
me or the training, my soft focus was like I had to rely more on head turns than after. So just a bit of a caveat on that conversation and to continue to drive home the importance and efficacy of actually training our visual tools.
Yeah. Love it. Love it. So yeah, that soft focus kind of helps me just I don't know, read the field. And, I mean, I was envisioning, like when a lacrosse player catches a pass, like you can already see what way he's going, what way he's going to dodge. And then as a goalie, sort of beating him to the spot, right? And already being ready for that shot because I had him in my peripheral, because I had him in my soft focus.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. I was going to ask another question. So there was a linebacker for the Bears in the 80s, like Mike Singletary, right? Mike
Mhm.
Singletary, who's got the big, like, he'd have these like big, open, intense eyes was kind of his
Yeah.
trademark thing. And I've seen some goalies do that. And I wanted to get your take on it because to me, when I have tense muscles, like they're not in general, they're not as reactive, right? Tense muscles are slow muscles, loose muscles are fast muscles. And
Yeah.
so if my eyes are like really like that straining trying to pick it up, I feel like I'm not going to see the shot as fast. Is that correct?
I would say kind of depends, where the scenario and the individual are going to have some differences. And like I find myself, I mean, it's been years since I've played competitively in any fashion, right?
Well, you still got it, right? You still got it.
Visually, yeah, visually. Yeah, I mean, being hockey goalie is so awful on the body. It's just, I mean, to go and do it recreationally, I mean, if I went and did it right now, it would be awful, like physically, so but I know that for me, when I'm making that peripheral check, I'll have my eyes open a little wider.
Hmm.
Some of that for me, going back to the individual thing, is my eyes get very squinty. Like if I
Same.
smile for a picture, my eyes are just gone. They're just,
Same. Yeah. Same.
and so that's just, a physical where by opening it up, I'm not limiting how much of my, eye is, getting input, right? And you're absolutely right. Like the tense muscles, it just never works, right?
Right.
Any precision or athletic movement, it's just you want to be loose, but um that exact scenario, I've had this conversation with people and it kind of varies, right? Like some people they are just staying in that relaxed is fine. For me, and probably I mentioned, Singletary, that opening of the eyes, there's an intensity, like you can feel it in your body when you do it,
Hmm.
which can have a positive effect. Um, and so simple answer, I think it depends on the person. But to that point, especially for like a younger developing player or even an older player, if you have room to kind of experiment, I think that's such an important part of athletic development is just trying things and seeing how do I feel when I do this? How do I feel when I do that? Right. Where, um, you know, have a practice where you've got Singletary eyes, and see where it helps, see where it doesn't,
Hmm.
and really um, get as in tune as possible with your eyes, right? And just kind of see how it works. And so for me, it's the conversations I've had. Some guys, they love, they're here.
Hmm.
Others are not, and they've both tried the alternative. And so um, there are a lot of depends, in my opinion, to that one.
No, all good. That's good that you said that because I recommend that in many different areas of lacrosse goalie is to try different things, whether that be, the base, the width and the base of your stance or how you hold your hands. And that's
Yeah.
just cool to hear that, like, yeah, the eyes too, factor into that. That's cool. Um, all right. So can we talk about a few exercises goalies could do at home that might benefit their vision?
Yeah. So um, one thing that I think there are some training tools um, that I use that can be implemented, where if you're going to do these reps at home, you're going to potentially get more out of them. And none of these are my products, but they're products I use and feel that they're very good. So one would be, they're called Swivel goggles. And if you're familiar, essentially it just blocks out everything but your central vision.
Yeah, I think I got a pair. I got a pair somewhere, but yeah, I know what you're talking about. I was hoping they're right here in my desk so I could put them on at that exact moment.
I gotcha.
Okay.
All right.
So, yeah, I know what you're talking about. There you go. So they sort of like block the outside edges of your eyes.
Yeah. And so, there's tracking technique, right? So I've coached a lot, and there's this, inevitable butting of the heads that happens sometimes between the coach and the goalie themselves. Coach is saying, watch it all the way in, turn your head, watch it all the way in. And the goalie says, I am, right? Because we can feel like we are. And the example I kind of used to demonstrate it is, if I have my hand here and I just turn my eyes, but then I cover this one, all my right eye is seeing is my nose, right? So it feels like I'm seeing my hand. It's like, okay, I watched it in. But a couple things that are important to know: our vision is best and most clear when our eyes are in the center of our head. So when we turn and look, to get that best vision, I refer to the nose laser, right? Because kids are like, well, why not eye lasers? It's like, because right now, one of my eye lasers is hitting it. So in my mind, I can feel like, yes, I'm turning my head far enough. But if my nose has to aim at it, it's a totally different feeling. And so I think from a coach's perspective, these can kind of, if you're working specifically on head turn and watching the ball in, it can remove some of your, need to just keep telling the kid to turn their head, because if they don't keep the ball in this center window, they will lose it and they have to turn. And a lot of times, especially first times kids wear those, they're really shocked by how far they have to turn to truly see it in.
Let me ask a question. That's so interesting. That is super interesting, by the way. So on that topic, well, first of all, one comment. So a lot of times, you'll see a lot of goalies like sort of bring their hands in and kind of try and like make the save right here. And I think you'll agree that like, even like as an ice hockey goalie, if I'm catching with my glove in here, like I'm not able to see it all the way in. When I make the save right here, like I'm right, I'm right on it. Was one point. But so if I have my head, I'm set up in my stance and there's a shot over here, like I should be turning my head to watch it in is what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And this is where, so again, for background, so in the goalie world, so I've worked with, dozens of NHL and Olympic hockey goalies. So I mentioned in our conversation, I worked with one lacrosse goalie who, it was right before he went D1 at a major school. I checked in with him prior to the podcast, and he loves your stuff, by the way. But he
let's go.
But yeah, he talked about what he saw in going through it, and just improve tracking, more confidence, that type of thing. And so reason I'm saying this is, I want to be straightforward in terms of my amount of work directly with lacrosse goalies and hockey goalies, right? So some of this I might ask you. You're more of an expert in lacrosse goaltending than I am, without question, right? So hockey goaltenders have a pretty set technique to how they track the puck. And most of it, in a nutshell, is keep it centered in your head and turn the whole head with it. Now, within that, not every puck can we do that on, right? Some of them are too fast, or there are certain spots where it would be detrimental to, because if I turn my head, if there's a puck coming right here, if I turn my head, it pulls this shoulder and now I'm handcuffed, right? So I might ask you, in a nutshell, or at least acknowledge, I'm not fully aware of, does that vibe with
Same,
the
same, exact
process?
same. Yeah, I'd imagine that would be the exact same, where there's certain shots, certain scenarios where it would not be advantageous. But
Yeah,
it's weird because I never even thought about it. I never even thought about it. But so if I'm set up right here, in my stance, and
yeah,
it comes here, right? Like I can't
yeah,
just look at it with my eyes,
right,
right? Like if I just try and make that save with my eyes, then I'm not seeing it the best as I can. I've got to sort of turn my head with it and kind of get my nose to that shot.
right.
Yeah, love it.
Um, and so that would be a way to, um, reinforce, by yourself or with a coach, proper head turn on shots that should have a head turn.
Yeah. Now I'm just thinking in my head. So like, is that, let's say we've got like a stick side hip shot. Cause I've seen some goalies where like, they're set up in their stance and the
Yeah,
shot comes and they actually like move their head to get with that shot.
yeah,
And then some goalies will just kind of like watch it in as opposed like the head might turn, but it will kind of stay as opposed to like, getting down there with it. Is there what's your take on that?
uh, depends on say where the save is.
Yeah.
General, I like the head to the object. Now, there are some differences. I might stand up for this.
Yeah.
Um, so we'll kind of jump hockey lacrosse. So in hockey, if I'm on my knees and I make a save off this hand, there's going to be a rebound, right? So if I can turn my head and make this save, but now if there's a rebound, I need my body for the follow-up rebound shot to move this way. And I have no momentum with which to carry myself.
Mm.
Where if I bring my head toward it, that naturally starts moving my body in the direction of where that rebound will be. And so
Hmm.
obviously not every save in lacrosse is going to just be caught and play over, right? So from a rebound standpoint, I would say closer is better because your body is moving toward that ball.
Yeah.
Uh, and if it's a bit outside you, staying close to it, it's easier to catch stuff that we can see more closely. So a lot of it depends on where is it. But even jumping back to hockey, if it's a low shot, again, it's that posture of what happens next, I suppose.
Yeah.
And
One thing that resonated with me there is like just getting your body moving in that direction because that's kind of as lacrosse goalies what we're trying to do is get our body behind the shot. And
yeah,
if I get that head, I mean the head's your heaviest part of the body, right? So if I get my head going in that direction, I think it's going to move me quicker in that direction.
yeah, it establishes some momentum.
Yeah.
It reduces the distance that your limbs need to move because your center is now closer to the desired area.
Yeah.
Uh, I would say, just overarching thought is that feasible on every shot, or is it best on every shot? Probably not, but
Right.
it's a good cornerstone where if you're doing that consistently, I think you'll have, success.
Yeah, but from a vision standpoint, like if something's coming at me, right, and I'm
Yeah.
tracking it coming at me, and I kind of move my head, does that impair my ability to track that or no?
That's a great question. So I talked to, so we go to baseball for a minute,
Okay.
right? Like if my head is moving now, the pitch is changing. We have all these different axes that are at play where, let's just assume the baseball is on a straight line. If my head moves, my perception where that is changes, which makes it harder. So a still head in that situation would be ideal. But I'm also in a situation there where my body doesn't have to move, right? Like the ball
Right.
has to cross the plate. It's a very small zone that I have to worry about.
Right.
Um, and look, then moving within the hockey goaltending population, goalies pretty much they drop from standing to their knees on almost every shot, right? It's to the point. It's, I mean, most of the shots they're doing that. So part of it is they're used to that change in the, in this regard.
Yeah.
So lacrosse, and I'm behind in the back of my brain as we're talking through everything, my wheels are turning, and I'm really excited to just like go explore some of these things. And when you ask about like drills to do, I hope to explore some things and maybe not today, but come back to like, hey,
Here's
let's,
what I got. I love it. Love it.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Love it.
And so, but in terms of go back to your question about does moving your head make it harder to catch? Maybe initially, but anything we train, we can get better at.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing I would do is just, for your younger listeners, is just watch some, highlight reels or just watch games of pros.
Yeah.
See what they do. And just, and this is always a challenge. I remember the first time someone posed this to me at a hockey camp when I was growing up. They're like, what's your thought process when you're watching a hockey game? I'm like, I don't know, eat my nachos and have fun, and
Yeah.
and they're like, would you watch the goalie? And it's just that in and of itself for developing athletes is something that I think, someone needs to kind of just spend some time talking to them, like, because I hear people introduce that concept to kids all the time, like, oh, you got to pick a player and watch them. It's like, okay, but let's help them along a little more. So with regard to this, if you watch a game or highlights or both, watch their head specifically, right? Where's their head? How are they making, and depending on like, if it's a highlight reel only of just crazy diving saves, that's not the best sample. But if it's just, over time, how does he move his head?
Mm-hmm.
Is it a head turn? Is it a head move toward the shot? From that regard, I think, that's always a safe place to go with these questions is, what do the pros do? And I might ask you that. What do the pros do?
It varies. It
Yeah.
varies. I mean, so it's kind of going back to that thing of find what works for you, right? I mean, you see some very top level, not as many on the men's side, but you see some top level goalies doing like the head, really getting that head behind the shot, and then not. So yeah, it varies.
This is not a hard rule, but in my years of doing this, the high level goalies that I've worked with who are not head turners, there was a lot of times their visual system matched that. A lot of times there's low convergence where they were never able to make this work. And so they just did this, just kind of looking straight forward. And again, I mean, they're pros. They're better than I ever was as a player.
Right.
But even if somebody's already at a high level of play, if there's a way to improve it, they should. And it's like,
of course,
when Tiger Woods reinvented his swing, it's like, I'm going to get worse before I get better, but I'm going to get better.
Yeah. Love it. Cool. So the swivel vision, we got way off topic, but yeah, that was awesome. The swivel vision's one, that you could just take shots with that. I mean, you could just play a pass against the wall. You can juggle, right? I mean, just kind of going about doing your normal drills, but with that restriction.
Yeah. And then, Synaptech strobe glasses are a go-to, more so for my high level players. Essentially, have you seen or heard of those?
Yeah, they give you like a little like strobe light action in the eye.
Yeah, so it doesn't emit light, which it just goes black and then opens back up.
Got it.
And so if this is the release of the shot and this is me in the net, normally I'll see the whole path of the ball. So by intermittently blinking, now I only see the ball here, 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 and here, and my brain has to fill in the gaps. It's crazy hard the first time you do it, right?
I bet, yeah.
So I tell people, like, first time you're doing this, like, start simple, and just laugh at yourself if you need to, right?
Right.
But there's this moment where the brain adapts and it adjusts to it, and um, and it becomes easy. Not maybe not easy, but like you can execute, like you can make clean saves.
Yeah.
You move up a level, it blinks more slowly. And now instead of seeing it like this, I might see it here and here and then here.
Wow.
Right. But then the magic happens when you take them off. Like you keep doing that, your brain adapts to it. But when you take them off and give your brain all the information back, it's like,
Way easier.
oh man, it's a cool feeling. It's cool. And so
Do I have superpower vision now? Like,
um and there are there's the old like writing numbers on a ball.
yeah, real
Uh
quick, just I want to make a comment on that drill because a lot of times for lacrosse goalies, just because of the fact that I think where we're not wearing much padding, right? I think that's what it has to do with it. But when the shot comes, like there's a lot of tension that builds up. Like, and you watch tape of young goalies and even college and pro, the pre-shot, like there's just so much like tension. The elbows come in, like maybe the head
yeah,
drops, the knees kind of
yeah.
buckle in. And I think that drill in particular helps with patience. Because like I know that I'm not going to see the shot all the way, but it's
Mhm.
okay, right? I don't need to tense up and get my body all, unathletic. I can be relaxed. And then when I do see it, bam, then I can make that, save and move as fast as I can. So I think that was really cool. I'm gonna have to start advocating that Synaptac glasses. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so uh I know and when you talk about that tightness, um I talk we talk all the time with my hockey goalies. I'm like, would you ever play if a kid plays lacrosse? I'm like, you a goalie? He's like,
Yeah.
heck no. Just
No
I
pads.
yeah. And that's a very natural thing. But so going back to um, the texts I got from my lacrosse goalie prior to this, he talked about just, patience and confidence, where um, preparing your visual system should put you in more of a calm, confident state, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
so one thing that we do, there's a series of exercises to just warm up the eye muscles. And that's something I can fire you if you want to put on your page, just
Okay.
something for users. It's and that could bridge the gap where I recognize so vision therapy is like a typically like 40 sessions. Um, you know, it's in the thousands of dollars to go through the full program,
Mm-hmm.
where that might not be an option for everyone, but if we treat muscles as muscles and recognize that we need to prepare them for battle. Once you learn this routine, it's like 2 minutes. That alone will help. If nothing else, it's going to help you be practice ready or game ready sooner, right? Because
Yeah.
if I step out there, mom and dad drop me off right at the buzzer, I get in there and it's just shot. The ball feels fast, right? Where the strobes have that effect of slowing it down. I'd say that's the ideal, where I would be confident if a goalie did a warm-up set like session with the strobes and then got in there with live bullets, live fire.
Mm-hmm.
um, what I see is less. So I have drills where goalies are in the net and I'm throwing racquetballs off a board where they don't know which way it's going to go, and I'm throwing like I ice my shoulder after. I mean, it's they're board 12 feet away, right? As hard as I can off this board at the net. I'll watch them. We'll do a set without the glasses first, just so establish a baseline for me. So it's, what percent are going in. For my top guys, not many are going in, but I look more at their movement and inefficiencies, like to your point, they might kind of come in and then extend.
Mm-hmm.
But after we finish with the strobes, there's not a wasted ounce of movement. It's just, and there's a calmness and a confidence about it.
Yeah.
And then I'd say maybe throw Happy Gilmore on, just isolate that clip where he goes in the batting cage and just is taking balls off the chest, and just from a mental side, just try to harness your inner Happy Gilmore and toughness. But I can't blame you. I mean, like, not having gear on, I mean, that's a real thing that you have to deal with in your brain. And so I'd say a combination of mental things, but also, further why the vision piece is so important. And, just doing things that can kind of prepare you for that.
Love
So,
it. Yeah. I
um,
love that connection of training the vision and the confidence, right? Gives you that confidence. I mean, that's kind of what we're all chasing is that feeling of confidence. And anytime you can do any sort of training that gives it to you, like why not? Why not? So vision training. Cool. So you're gonna mention one more drill and then we can probably that'll probably be the last one.
okay. Or just balls with numbers on them.
Got it.
I think, so even if I'm just doing a solo throw catch, and let's say they pair well with this, where each time I catch the ball, right, I've got to be here. I have to watch it in, and then you can see the numbers through the netting. So it's like I have to call out the number before I release from that position, if that makes sense. And so, um,
On the shot or like when it's in my stick.
when it's in your stick,
Got it.
just like complete the track, right? Like see it all the way in, and just provided it's, you've got it, play doesn't keep going until you do something, right? And so I have guys in there in girls in their training exaggerate that. I call it squeeze and freeze, where they squeeze it and they freeze. And so I'd have to think of a new rhyme for you guys, but so in terms of just like actual drills, I think I'm going to give some thought to that. But
Well,
if
that's
you
we
could,
got a good start. We got a good start. We got the juggling.
yeah,
We got those goggles. We got the other Synaptech goggles, and then the numbered balls. And then you're gonna send me like a PDF or something, some sort of info with the warm up. And what is that? Just at a high level? Is it just like look up, look down, look right, look left? Is that kind of the way I work my muscles, or is there something more going on there?
no, you're on the right track.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nothing, crazy. It's just thumbs, convergence,
Yeah.
divergence. And like to your point, um, and this would lump back into what we talked about earlier in terms of stuff you can just kind of check out at home. So like I'll do presentations for coaches or agencies or whatever, and I'll have everyone just sit and just be like, look as far as you can to your left,
Hmm.
and now look a little further, and then the other side, and especially we get into the diagonal corners, and I mean you can see people wincing. It
Right.
hurts.
Right.
And especially today, almost all of our life just happens here. I'm
Right.
driving
Especially
on
just looking at the phone
my
all
phone.
day, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And then we'll do this extensive dynamic warm up for stuff from the neck down. But if 99% of my life is just right here, and now I'm forcing my eyes to their extreme just range of motion, they're not used to it. And so that warm up, I mean, even if a kid doesn't have a practice day, if you just do that routine, like just working through all the ranges, once a day, just from a wellness perspective, honestly, like even if you're just, not a lacrosse player, it's just good to keep things loose,
Yeah. Yeah.
and yeah. If and so if we are working toward wrapping up, may I do or are we still cooking?
No, we are wrapping up. We are wrapping up.
Okay.
I was going to ask you, I mean, tell me about, the services that you got, the services you offer. Someone's listening to this, how can I get training from you? Because hopefully we've done a good job of explaining why you need to do the training. I'm feeling pretty pumped about that. But yeah, how do we work with you?
Website is truefocusvision.com. So we're based in Minnesota. So if you're in Minnesota, come see us. We're in Edina. I work with people remotely as well. And so that could be on the hand-eye, just the hand-eye side. We have a membership site, and it's www.goalie.vision. So it's just all hand-eye drills. So it's passive. I'm not coaching you with those, but it's going to be, especially if it's like, all right, I've learned to juggle. Now what? It's just like way more, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And then in terms of the actual training of the visual system, you can reach out. My email is josh@truefocusvision.com, and I can walk you through more of that full comprehensive program. Yeah, those would be the main ways. And I like to make a point that if anybody listening, if the reading topic resonated with you, whether it's me or someone else, if that's the case for you, the listener, or, if you're a parent for your kid, please look into vision therapy. It may not be the solution for you, but if it is, I've seen the entire path of kids' lives changed by it. So
that's so cool. Yeah, so cool. So not only will you be able to make more saves, you can read a lot better, learn a lot better, a lot of benefits there.
yeah.
Love it. How much is the membership site?
It's I want to say 20 a month, monthly, or 15 a month if you do the annual plan.
Got it.
There's a 7-day free trial. So, dive in, try some stuff, see if it works.
Love it. Well, I'm going to do this. If someone's still listening to this point, we're about an hour 15 in, email me the word vision and I'll get you a free 3 months. I'll treat someone to 3 free months. First person to email vision to Damon at LAX Goalie Rat. So we'll get somebody in there. Josh, thank you so much for coming on. This was awesome. Awesome. Eye-opening experience, right? Woo! Any other cool eye puns that we forgot about? Or, I mean, I feel like the eye-opening experience is the main one, right?
Oh man, I've got this is our mascot in the room. This is Ivan. And
Nice.
we, for single eye exercises, we wear these. So my license plate is actually R matey, because I just, so many pirate jokes. It just I love dad jokes.
Yeah, who doesn't love a good pirate joke?
Do you know why the man with bad vision fell in the well?
No.
Because he couldn't see that well.
I feel like that's a great place to stop. Josh, thank you. Before we get too deep into these jokes, Josh, thank you so much. And if you had to leave the lacrosse goalies out there, one final piece of advice, what would that be?
Bare minimum, get an eye exam. And then beyond that, just seek out vision therapy, assessments, or exam. If there's something going on that will prevent you from reaching your dreams and goals, at least just get the information. Most people have room for improvement. Pro athletes don't just crush the test just because they're pros, right? But especially if you have something serious going on, or if anything resonated, like double vision, or if your eyes get tired or headaches, those types of things, there's a higher likelihood you might be dealing with something. And just get the information. Make sure vision is one of the pieces of the pie for you. I know it's not everything, but it's really important, and there's more you can do for it than most people realize.
Josh, thank you so much.
Thank you.